I call Chris Farfoy.
Mr Chair, it's a privilege to speak to Part 3 of the Health and Safety Reform Bill. If you look through Part 3, you can see the remnants of what this bill could have and should have been. Because in amongst some of a little bit of the bad stuff is actually some good stuff. And I do want to point towards clause 92 when the Chair resumes the Chair, which is around the provisional improvement notices, which are notices that a health and safety rep can take to the PCBU or the boss if that health and safety rep notices a practice or something that is going on in the workplace that shouldn't be going on, issues a notice to make sure that some improvements should be made. Last night in my speeches to other parts of the bill, Mr Chair, I spoke of a gentleman called Mark Samoa from Porirua who passed away in early January after he was in a workplace accident here in Wellington on the wharves of Centreport. His situation was that he was putting labels on bales of pulp in between the bales. Somebody else didn't know he was there in a forklift, moved some of those bales and crushed Mark Samoa to death. Now, if there was a health and safety rep in that situation now at Centreport, you would hope that clause 92, a provisional improvement notice, would be the kind of thing that they would instigate to make sure that the practices there at the Centreport could be improved. I hope they have improved already since the time that Mr Samoa has passed away. But that is one of the issues that we think there is good within Part 3. But it is unfortunately all held back because of Section 60, Clause 65 of the bill, 65(3), which takes away the ability for all workplaces to have such a health and safety rep to instigate Clause 92 and put one of these provisional improvement notices in there. Now, Mr Chair, the previous Chair I saw from my office and watching on television made a ruling about a visual aid that should not be shown, and I acknowledge that some members of this House took offence to that and respect that, and I understand that a ruling has been made. And while we can't show that symbolic way of the voice of the families of those who have had people pass away, I still think it is very important that we do make sure that the voice of the families of those people who have died at workplaces, and if that member could give me a chance, I'll do that. Because one of those people is Rhonda Samoa, the sister of Mark Samoa, who passed away. And I think it's really important that we do get those voices in. And I was touched that Rhonda and some of her family came to Parliament on Tuesday night to voice their anger at what is being done here in Part 3. And if the Chair will allow me, I'd like to read a post that Rhonda made on my Facebook page on Tuesday night. She said that she came to Parliament and listened to the discussion of the Reform Bill and heard the families of lost ones who've lost their family members in workplace accidents, Pike River, and a mother who lost her son in a forestry incident. She said it was sad because I share their sentiments. She said their stories were heartbreaking. She thanked those who in this Parliament who were fighting to protect the rights of workers. She said, fight for the workers' rights, for safety in the workplace. She asked the question, what more basic right could be denied us? She said, this bill is a farce. The government pandering to small business employers for the vote. As the health and safety rep at my work, it's part of my job to ensure we all adhere to safe best practice. She says somebody's got to have your back. We lost 51 New Zealanders to workplace accidents in 2013, and after Pike River, you'd think that this government would learn. So I'm not going to take any lectures from that side of the House about this side of the House making this issue political. Right. Because that is a government that held this process up in their own caucus room and its own negotiations because they made this issue political. That's right. Because when they made the promise to make workplaces safer for all New Zealanders after Pike River, Mr Chair, most New Zealanders believed them. And they said, this is a good thing. Even we said this is a good thing, Mr Chair. But in part 3, Mr Chair,
Christopher Voigt.
but in part 3, Mr Chair, the government makes a lie of that promise. And the government makes a lie of that promise because it has pandered to some businesses who don't think it's right to make sure that all workers in their workplaces are safe. Because it is within, I think it is clause 65(3) that we see the carve out for workplaces where there are less than 20 employees. And our question has been, why? And the member who was speaking before me and the Minister in the chair last night in his opening remarks to part 3 said, we want to encourage a culture of personal responsibility in the workplace so that each worker knows that it's their responsibility and a collective responsibility to make sure that they're safe in their workplace. Well, I'm sorry, Mr Chair, and to the government, that culture already exists. And Rhonda Samoa said it on my Facebook page last night. You don't have to create the culture because the culture already exists. What those people in those workplaces want is legislation that actually makes that culture law, so then when they go to their bosses, they're backed up by legislation, and if they've got concerns in the workplace, this government, this parliament will back them up. But no, this piece of legislation doesn't do it for a large number of businesses where they have fewer than 20 employees. So my question to the other side of the House is why? Why did you change your mind from the outset, where everything was going to be comprehensive, to what you call now balanced? Because in the opening remarks at part 1, the Minister said this is a balanced piece of legislation. Well, what exactly are you balancing? Because you're balancing the safety of people in their workplace. And I hope I never have to get the phone call where one of my loved ones has had an injury or died at work. Because here in this parliament, I think we have a duty to make sure we do everything possible to make sure they're safe. And this piece of legislation, when it set out on this journey, did. But now, Mr Chair, because of clause 65, it doesn't. Not for every single New Zealander there, because the carve-out there is for those businesses with 20 or fewer employees. So my question is why? Why did it get held up within your caucus room? Who in that side of the House said we should keep it as it was? Who on that side of the House says let's change it? Because we knew that it got held up. Which smaller parties put a fly in the ointment from what this bill originally started out as to what it looks like now? Because this is not the best that this parliament can do for every worker in New Zealand. It's not. And Rhonda Samoa knows that. All those families that came from who lost loved ones in the Park River disaster know that. They came to this parliament to say that this is not good enough. And I think they know. They know damn well better than me. And I think unless someone in this place has lost someone at work, I think they damn well know better than all of us. So why has this changed from what it was originally to what it is now? And I respect that some members on that side of the House are taking some calls. Get up and tell us why. Get up and tell us why this has changed. Because if you don't, no one who came to this parliament who represent those people who have passed away are getting a decent answer from you as to why future families won't be put in that same position. Because we need to be doing much better than this. We don't need any more Rhonda Samoa. She said after the court case that it took a death and a court case for her brother's employer to get a good kick up the arse. So why are we sitting here giving her a lame-ass solution to a problem that we need to make sure keeps our people safe in the workplace? So for Rhonda Samoa and all those families who have actually lost family members in the workplace, I want to hear from that side of the House why you watered this down.